The other day I asked you guys for your hottest takes on the Minecraft building community scene. Now what I mean by this is your opinion on certain subjects which may be seen as against the grain, not the most popular idea, and I was not disappointed with the feedback you guys gave me. So today I'm going to be going through them and rebutting a few of them, because while it's good to hear a hot take, sometimes it really is actually a bad take. So let's sit down, go through a few of these, and see if you guys like me by the end of it. So I will be naming and shaming everyone while we go through this. Yes, I did say that in the comment, I think. So we're going to start off with a hot take by rcamels30, and the hot take here is gradients are good, but sometimes people don't know when to stop the amount of different blocks in a single build. Now, I actually really agree with this one. As a hot take, I don't think it's too spicy, let's say. So the idea of a gradient is you go around, you put lots of different blocks into a wall, into a build, to try and simulate color change from, let's say, top to bottom. Now, there are great ways of doing this in, I would say, more large-scale landscaped builds, as opposed to, you know, a small townhouse, which I have seen it done in many times, and honestly, it just looks a bit wrong. The idea of putting texturing in a wall is very different. You know, texturing just includes putting different coloured blocks in a wall to give it a sort of aged, used, lived effect, as opposed to going, you know, from different coloured sands all the way up through the woods, up to the level of sort of detail that really, for a small build, is not required at all. I know the majority of the community out there probably will go, yeah, but gradients look great, you know, look at B-dubs. Yes, they can look good. Yes, they can look good. And the idea of them being used in, like I said, a sort of more fantasy, landscaped sort of build, fine. But for a lot of the stuff we do here in our building communities and the wider audience, I think gradients just are a little bit overdone. So please, you know, if you disagree with that, if you believe my take is also a hot take here, please let me know in the comments below. So another hot take here, this one's from Nicholas Fitzgerald. This one seems kind of split between those who are good at building and those who aren't. But diorite is an excellent block for building with. Now, that is 100% true. Is it a hot take? Am I one of those ones that are good at building? Perhaps. Diorite as a block is a fantastic sort of texturing block. Now, I do have a building, this one actually up here, which is covered in diorite. And now I have just remembered something. In our texture pack, it is slightly dulled down because it doesn't look great. Oh no. Perhaps that hot take isn't so hot, but yeah, it can definitely be used for building, but I think an overuse of it and a sort of reliance on using diorite as a sort of, you know, if you don't want something too white, you throw a bit of diorite in. I think there's definitely a level where it's a little bit too much. On the other hand, I don't believe it's a horrible block. I think it's one of those that people love to hate due to the hate given to it, or the names given to it by popular Minecraft YouTubers, especially, you know, a few years back. But diorite is definitely an underrated block that requires use. So I don't know if that's too much of a hot take actually, but what I'm doing is I'm just scrolling through the comments on my community post about this, and I wanted to go for the top ones first, so that's what we're at the top here. So another hot take here, this one's from Akara. They say making smaller towns and villages with challenging diagonals and elevation changes is much harder than most any gridded and flat city can ever be. And well, I mean, is that really a hot take? I think some of these are just like comments by people who think, you know, building diagonals and that is the way to go. I think as long as a city's set out well, even a gridded city can look good. A gridded flat city, as long as there's some variation in levels, you know, over a certain distance. It doesn't have to be, you know, every 4 blocks go up one. Sometimes, yeah, you know, you can make these beautiful sort of, let's say, European styled cities where they are built upon like towering mountainsides and the likes. But I think they both have a very useful way of determining what looks good. And it's not always the angled builds. Angled builds, well, that's a whole other story really. They can look good, they can also look very terrible. So my thoughts on angled builds. Now this is a hot take, I hate them. I absolutely detest them. Apart from the fact they're very required when you want to build something that actually looks good. So is that a paradox? Now, yes, yes it is a paradox, and it's one of those ones where you have to just deal with it. once you get into building. So we're here in a town I've built over a couple of years ago now. God, yeah. Angle builds were the name of the game, and if done well, like this one here, I would say is good enough, and it's on a small windy road. I think diagonals work best when they're with other diagonals, and you can lose a lot of the realism if you put diagonals like directly next to, let's say, really flat edged, quite large buildings. Again, this is coming back to the idea that a gridded city looks bad. It doesn't, because when you have a gridded city, you can build buildings as they should be with flat faced, you know, and you can choose how you do your vistas. But something like this is, once you sort of start looking at it from certain angles, especially with shaders, you lose a lot of the magic because you get shadows everywhere. There's definitely aspects of what are you trying to build in terms of whether grids or angled and diagonal cities with variation in levels work. At the end of the day, I think a good looking city requires both. You're going to need 2 or 3 diagonals to make it look work. Actually, probably more than that. But yeah, I think that's definitely going to cause a bit of sort of stir in the comments, that one. What are your takes on diagonal builds? Do you love them? Do you hate them? Do you think they're even required to build something looking realistic? I'm quite undecided still. So my next comment here is from Dimitrik. Most Minecraft builders don't know what architecture from the Middle Ages looked like, and build giant fantasy houses with steep, extremely colourful roofs and label it medieval. Now, nobody knows what medieval buildings look like. Well, I suppose they do. There is an aspect of Minecraft fantasy medieval stuff that a lot of people do sort of regurgitate as the, I don't know, the general style of what is medieval. In actual fact, if you want to build something, some, you know, realistic medieval buildings, they aren't going to look like these beautiful, colourful builds. But at the end of the day, I think everyone has a misconception of the medieval times being gritty and hard done by and nothing colourful. You know, back then medieval like cathedrals were painted different colours on the front and all of that. So there is an aspect of realism in colourful roofs. I just think labelling it medieval as a sort of realistic medieval is never going to be the way forward. It must be labelled as fantasy. As you know, as much as the game is, our community is very driven by the idea of things being real, being, you know, an aspect of, yes, this is a real style. Medieval is such a large, broad term, meaning, you know, best part of 1,000 years of history, that there is no determined sort of style of what is medieval. And we got another one here from Bo Bandit, who is on the same sort of level again. Minecraft medieval often bears little resemblance to actual medieval period architecture, though granted medieval is a broad and inaccurate term. This comment pretty much just sums up my talking points to the last one. It's very hard to determine exactly what medieval is, because people just don't need to know, if that makes sense. So we're moving on now to gooey plastic. A build is only good if it looks good both with and without shaders. Yes. Hot take? Yeah, I think it is a hot take. I think a lot of people hide behind shaders. So you see this building here. I wanted to come over here and kind of just show this one off. This is it with shaders. I mean, are the shaders doing anything to it? The idea of this one is it's a very plain building, trying to take on proportions to make it look good. Now, if I turn my shaders off, does it still work as a build? Does it still look good? I think this one looking good is very subjective. I think it looks good, but I don't think you guys do. And I think a build should be built without shaders on. If I had to have a hot take on that, I think if a building is being constructed without shaders, you get a better sense of how it looks and how things look within the actual game itself. If you are constantly building with shaders on, you're never going to know what the building looks like in you know, an unshaded exact world. But again, it all comes down to what you're trying to achieve. If you're just, you know, taking screenshots, the world's never meant to do anything, no one's playing on it, it's not. I think it comes down to the sort of survival versus creative mindset that a lot of people have in the community. Creative builds are being built just for show, let's say. Obviously this one here is a nice decked out pub, but it was built for a purpose of being shown off in the video. Shaders making it look good were irrelevant, really. This one was built just to make it look, you know, used. I think if you're building something in survival and it's looking good without shaders on, then yeah, that's cool. Again, in creative, I think shaders, yeah. What am I trying to say? Shaders are definitely used as a clutch, or a crutch. And people get too hung up on the fact that shaders are being used. Oh, it's such a... I'm trying to tread quite carefully with this. My honest opinion is shaders are great. I love shaders. I think they add so much more to a build. But at the end of the day, they aren't the be all to say end all. Like, a build should stand up by itself as being well built, well designed, well detailed, to the point where it's not just being this mess of levers and set fence gates and signs that when you turn shaders on, you go, oh wow, I can see every aspect of it. A build should be, you look at it like this and go, hey, that's a pretty good build. Then you turn the shaders on and go, hey, that's a pretty good build. Shaders shouldn't be the only way to look at it. I think I agree with you there. A lot of these aren't really rebuttals. I'm actually going through a lot of these and going, maybe the whole community is wrong. Or these hot takes are actually lukewarm takes. Let's see if we can find a spicy one. So Master Rickon says here, very large, highly detailed builds are typically seen as the best builds, but a smaller, simpler, well-proportioned build with appropriate detailing shows more skills. I wholeheartedly agree with that, mainly because my style revolves around lesser details, with the idea of proportions will carry. But that is true, and less is more in this sense. If you can proportion and design a build perfectly, then it should be able to stand up by itself without having to throw, let's say, a whole host of levers and whatnot at it to make it look detailed and beautiful. I think a well-proportioned, well-harmonistic building that just works on its own. Take a beautiful looking cube, for example, one built in the sort of Fibonacci sequence of, let's say it has, it wouldn't be a cube, would it? It'd be a rectangle unless we're doing 1, 1. No, yeah, a single block. Look at this single block on my hand. It's beautiful. No, so the idea is, if you build something, let's say 3 by 5, it's going to look good. Is that the right thing? I think I've forgotten Fibonacci. Oh no, the plane in the background. Okay, this actually has been said quite a few times in my post about buildings that have too much detail are actually easier to make look good than something that is very simple, harmonistic, proportionally correct. Even Aussie goes on to say, detail building styles are easy to pull off, the ones that are about simplicity, proportions and harmony. And I fully agree there. Hot take, I think over-detailing is a crime. We'll go with that for the answer to that one. So Bertram Schultz says here, excessive attention to detail is not always conducive to realism. Sometimes you have to leave out an element to give a better impression of the whole. So it's a similar take to the last one. The idea that because Minecraft isn't a tool to use to take things from a absolute recreation standpoint, you have to take some design liberties, some choices, some differences to the actual initial reference. So take this building here. This is Hurst Castle. Now this is a real building, but the way I built it was such that it fit in Minecraft rather than be an exact one-to-one recreation of the castle. I took some liberties by, just putting random little details up here, doing strange little bits inside, and also just, taking my own sort of approach to putting these tracks in here, again with these little buildings around, because once you start taking a building into Minecraft, translating it from the real world, you should be looking to make it your own. You should be looking to add details yourself and take it from however it is in the real world and making it into your own creation. I have a hot take. I think recreating something one-to-one exactly as it is from real life into Minecraft is a waste of time. Okay, yes, you can flame me in the comments for that. I enjoy curating stuff and then using that sort of collection of images and designs to build something different. So I try and promote that as well with this channel. You can get inspired by something from the real world, hence this place here, but you should try and make it your own. Change some details up, do something different, because at the end of the day, copying is copying. No, I don't think we should. It's inspiration. Okay, we're not going to say if you copy a real life building into Minecraft, you're breaking copyright, because please, let's not say that. But you should be inspired more so than trying to build it as accurately as you can. Hence what Bertram said there, which I think is a great hot take. I think more people need to hear that. I am finding myself agreeing with far too many of these. Okay, here's one that I don't agree with. Rob High says, hot take, it's far more impressive when you build something in vanilla than with texture packs. I'm going to say I disagree. I used to be upon the stance of everything should be vanilla, nothing should be built with texture packs. And that was me in about, I don't know, April 2020. Since then, I have decided that I think having a texture pack that complements the vanilla game, adds a little bit of extra sort of help towards what you want to build, shouldn't be frowned upon. Though a really heavily sort of different texture pack, like let's say Flows HD or something like that, or those ones that really add a complete different class of blocks, like resource packs, they have their sort of their take for if you're trying to make a sort of a scene within Minecraft that you want. But I think at the end of the day, a texture pack should be enough that it helps elevate a build up a little bit, but where you take it off, perhaps it still works. So yeah, I think that's a hot take. I don't think I agree fully with the idea that you should be building without texture packs. I think a lot of people like a texture pack. Some people do heavily use them too much, and really become like, let's say, powered trapdoors, you know, have a different texture when they're powered as opposed to unpowered. That's taking it too far. So we have a hot take here from Chaplain Gund. He says builders and building YouTubers should focus more on the art of building, the actual making sceneries, visual hierarchies, pathing the eye through your build, than on what kind of details to use. I agree. I think a build only holds up well if it's actually set in the right location as a piece of art. Take this place, for example. Wub and Bub have built this place to perfection. Your eye, let's stand back here, your eye is guided down this beautiful central area, this avenue, down towards the build at the end, the terminating view. You have different aspects and designs and details either side. Now, it's quite easy, let's say, to pose an image where you go, right, let's set it up here, we've got the rule of third going on, everything sort of works, your eye will be guided towards something. But I think a build should, you know, be seen at many different angles, and I think the hot bit about then what details to use is a bit sort of, it doesn't really work here. Details are required for a build to look good. It's just the idea of over detailing. Do you know, I've got to the point now where I'm just like, do I agree with this or do I not agree with this? I think the idea of making a build part of an overarching piece of artwork is good. But I think saying that, you know, builders shouldn't focus on what details to use is not really. So we have a hot take here from Dope Pope Urban. Hot take: using end rods to simulate white facades and window details kills the immersion of a realistic, coherent build. Yeah, I agree with that one. Don't know if it's too much of a hot take. It's definitely a take. I was trying to see if I got any examples around here. I don't think I do. But to be honest, end rods only sort of break a build when you have shaders on. If you are just building in vanilla, I think end rods work fine. You know, if you aren't going to have light emitting anywhere, end rods are perfect. But the moment you put shaders on, you end up with these white bars down the middle of your screen. You go, okay, there's a lot of light coming out there. There are ways around it. If you do powered copper rods, I think they work well. I was trying to, like this one here. That is a powered lightning rod, which has the desired effect of an end rod, but without the sort of immersion breaking section. So yes, I think that is a good take. I don't think it's a hot take. I think a lot of people agree with that. I just think it's definitely something to think about when people are building. So here's one from Eskstrom1. A small building scaled large and get the details right is something everyone can do. Now that is a hot take. I think the answer is yes. If you scale a building up far enough, you know, let's say 2:1, 3:1, 4:1, then details start becoming one block and you can really start to just do it. But at that point, and this is what I sort of am leaning towards, saying that it's not really a hot take, it's more of a, yeah, that's true. It becomes pixel art at that point, and I just feel like it's pointless. There is a sort of a school of thought that, you know, a one-to-one build is okay, and possibly what people like to desire to build at. But if you scale up, let's say, you know, half times more, maybe 1.2, you can start putting details in, but keep it at a nice player size. If you're going up to, you know, like 2 to 3, you know, 2 times bigger, 3 times bigger, 4 times bigger even, what's the point? You've just built a piece of artwork. Maybe that's what you want, but I think there's a lot of skill lost in that. So yes, Eatscream, I think you're correct on that one. And whether it be a hot take or not, I don't know, but I agree with your take there. So we have a hot take here from Northman. Creative City time lapses you see on YT. Many of them, not all, okay, only look great with shaders and from afar, but have an incredibly low detail and plain look. Now, that is possibly true, and especially for those that you see built let's say an entire city, you know, something from Lord of the Rings or something, or somewhere where the whole city has been built up in one video. I would like to think I don't fall into that category, because I like to build certain areas at one time and actually focus on details and buildings, as opposed to just trying to throw up walls and just say, yeah, that's a building, that's a building. Possibly, I mean, it's been a long time since I watched someone else's time-lapse video. I'm not really into watching Minecraft videos anymore, strangely enough. I think that's a hot take in itself. I don't watch Minecraft content, but when I used to back in the day, people would take a long time building stuff. I don't think it's fair to say, and as you said in the comment, is, you know, not everyone's, but there is a majority of YouTubers out there who do time-lapse builds, and yes, I would say they probably are basic, or the copy and pasted sections to make things look bigger and more detailed and more fleshed out, but the moment you look at it in detail, it's just flat. Yeah, hot take, I believe, but also possibly true. A lot of these rebuttals haven't been rebuttals, have they? I've agreed with far too many of these hot takes. Right, moving on. So we've got one here from Endkavant. Yes, we'll say that's how his name said. It's on the screen. Gradients are kind of dumb. You should add shadows instead, and such, make it more realistic. No, I think if you're gonna not add gradients, fine, but don't just add random shadows in the walls. I have seen people do it, and I'm a bit like, okay, it looks great for like one image, but let's say you've got this candle here, so this bit would be light, and then suddenly over here you go, right, that's going to be dark now, that's going to be dark, you know. I think that takes away the immersion completely. Again, a gradient does. I think both are wrong to be said as sort of the absolute. Again, they can both work in certain situations, but for an overall arching statement of, you know, no gradients, but you should use shadows instead. Now, I think that's ultimately very wrong. So here's a hot take that I really don't agree with. Free Guy. Creations without use of debug stick or the world edit require much more skill. That's false. Have you ever tried to debug something and then, you know, figure you got to place it in a certain way, certain style, learn commands for world edit, use it as a tool, as opposed to just being, oh, I'm stuck in this bath, just being a sort of donkey work replacer? There is much more skilled builds out there that require the use of world edit and debug sticks, that if you sort of write it off as it's just cheating, then I think you've put yourself in a position where you'll never grow as a builder. Hot take. I don't agree with that at all. I think, and there's a lot of people out there that go, oh yeah, but world edit, you know, it's cheating. It's saving time. Is saving time cheating? Maybe. Is Minecraft meant to be played in survival? No. Can people build the way they wish to build? Yes. But saying that someone lacks skill because they use a debug stick and or world edit, I can't say I agree with that at all. And I imagine the vast majority of people out there do as well. But that's the thing, and I think it comes back down to the idea that there is a divide between survival and creative builders. It's a hard line to walk. So staying on that theme, we have another one from Northman. I think we've featured him earlier. Hot take, copy and paste is not building. Same goes for world edit and world paint. That's why I respect survival builders more than creative ones. It's hard work placing block by block. No offense, just my honest opinion. No, it all comes down to what do you actually class as skill or building. If you class placing blocks one by one down as building, as a skillful way of doing it, then I'm sorry sir, but I think you're just looking for an excuse for the wasted time in survival. At the end of the day, if you've only got, let's say, 3 hours that week to build something, why not? I'm just going to follow through the glass here. Why not use world edit to help you along? Why would you be deeming that as cheating or a lesser build than someone that has to go out, dig up loads of stuff, waste loads of time placing blocks one by one in? To me, it just seems a bit like cutting your nose off to spite your face at that point, sort of thing. Like, you have the option, why would you not use it? It's like someone saying, I'm not going to use a calculator because my brain is much more powerful than the calculator, so I'm just going to rely on my brain to do everything. You know, I'm going to do calculus in my head. It's like, use the tools at hand because they're there to be used, but it's also a skill to use the tools correctly. It's the same idea of getting like a formula sheet in an exam. Yes, that's great, you know, you don't have to remember the formulas, but you still have to remember how to apply them. I think trying to tar creative builders with a brush saying, no, you're you're lazy is downright disrespectful. That's just my honest opinion from being a creative builder. Survivor builders, yes, absolutely. You know, it takes a vast amount of skills not to die constantly. But to say a build is less because it's been built using a tool rather than brute force with someone's hands it's a hot take. Right, well, here's another hot take for you. One from Thrawn, as in the Grand Admiral. He says, hot take, building palaces and churches all the time is obnoxious. It can be, sure. But I believe the reason you think that is because you are against government and religion. No, the idea of building palaces and churches and just palaces and churches doesn't make too much sense. But let's say you've got a place like this, a large city that requires several churches, several palaces, then it works as long as you start filling in the gaps in between it. Now, to build just churches and just go, yep, that's fine, it all depends on what you're actually doing. But like you can see here, you build a church and then you build stuff around it, and these are the landmarks, and every city will require landmarks to you know, be placed down to then go, right, we're going to build this around there, that bit around there. I think it's obnoxious to think they're obnoxious, but that's just my hot take on the moment. Okay, we're moving on to probably the last two hot takes. I think we've had enough of these now. So Pipo Craze, or PPO Catzy, we'll say that. I think European style buildings are oversaturated at this point. Don't get me wrong, they look good, but it's really boring when everything you see is the same European architecture builds. Now that's a hot take, because at the end of the day, people build things that are, you know, interesting to them, related to them in some way. Let's say you like to rebuild buildings from your hometown, from your home country. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of people who play Minecraft, make YouTube videos on Minecraft, and you know, run Minecraft servers and that, are European American, they have set styles of architecture that are, you know, very common. The idea that it's boring and oversaturated is not correct. Yes, a lot of places build the same things. Let's say Paris. You know, Paris has been built in Minecraft countless amounts of times, as has London and New York and a whole host of other places. But it's not to say that each time someone else builds it, they don't do something different and add their own little touch and details. I would not say it's boring. I think that's a personal opinion there that requires some sort of looking into yourself. I followed up on this question to him because I went, okay, right, what do you mean? What would not be boring in your eyes? Well, in actual fact, he had another comment under that saying, North American and Japanese too, those three are the holy trinity and are boring at this point. Good lord, that is quite the hot take. So I asked him, I'm interested to hear what you think are non-boring styles. And he came back to me with an almost greater hot take. I think South Asia and Southeast Asian architecture are underrated. I rarely saw people build them in the style. They also have some fusion styles where they were combined whatever colonizer architecture that colonized them with their local twist. There are very traditional local vernacular designs that could be explored. I think people should give them a try. They might even find a new favourite architecture. Now this goes back to the earlier point I said. People like to build things related to them from an area they like, or just a period or style that they like. It should never be dictated to them that, oh, that style is boring or that's been overdone, or because at the end of the day, why should one person say that to someone else when, you know, they have their own take on what's good or what's not good? I think a lot of people do this anyway. Like, when they say I post a British build, and because people have a preconceived idea of, you know, oh, it's British, oh, it must be bad. It sort of sullies the view on things. And this comment, I don't know, this comment sort of just rolled me up in the wrong way. So what's your hot take on that? Is architecture from Europe and America and even Japan overdone at this point? I don't really think it is. I think there's so much to be done from it that I fear it's just people's opinions of those places in the real world get in the way of Minecraft builds. Anyway, I don't really know where I am or why I'm here. Well, I think that's been enough hot takes for today. This has been a bit of a different video. I kind of just wanted to make a quick and easy one because I'm sort of without equipment per se, not as much as I would like to at the moment. So expect lesser and fewer videos, possibly for most of this year, while I try and ramp back up to actually being able to do stuff. But in the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed this sort of delve into my ideas on your hot takes, and whether this has opened up some more stuff in your mind. That's really bright there, as to whether you have some hot takes on Minecraft building. So anyway guys, thank you for watching. Remember, get inspired, get building, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.